Is this the on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. I very welcome my friends and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Tuesday's edition of the dceu Daily. And if you're feeling charitable, please smash the subscribe button and the like button and follow me over on Twitter at MoviesTVMad. Justice League is a movie that expects you to like its characters because they're characters. They're characters in a comic that everybody knows. The Flash, Aquaman, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg. We are supposed to accept these characters because they've been around. So basically, Joss Whedon, let's judge Joss Whedon for what we saw, because we don't really know what Snyder was going to do. But even from the inception, it was still going to be the same, where we had to get to know and like these characters from one film, right? We're going to the first Avengers because I think we need to, right? And no one's suggesting we should be like Marvel, but let's be honest about this. So the title of this video is Positives about Justice League, but I want to go into more than that. So positives are Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg. And even Wonder Woman. Even Wonder Woman's quite good if we ignore the kind of sexist, misogynist stuff that happened, the upskirt stuff, Barry falling on top of her. Now, Joss Whedon publicly prides himself as a feminist. I think he may have lost his press card, his membership card to the Feminist Society of Males, because there's a couple of things there that are a bit distasteful and misogynistic and definitely sexist. But I think what he did get right in his rushed cut of Justice League, as I say, is Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and The Flash. These characters work really, really well. Now, that's quite a feat, considering he had to come in, reshoot most of the movie, and develop a new kind of, I suppose, dynamic and chemistry between the actors. Of course, the actors had already spent so much time with Zack and with themselves together, so that helped. The camaraderie between those three actors was pretty good. And even Batman was not as good as he was in BVS, of course not. But there was something going on there. But mainly the three I mentioned before I mentioned Batman. I think these characters and heroes work within this movie. They do. The problem is you are asking people who have never seen them, apart from Aquaman, a few seconds in BVS, The Flash, a few seconds in BVS, right? And Cyborg, we don't even get a close-up of Ray. He's slabbed up on the wall. We can barely see what's going on. And unless you understand Cyborg's origins, you ain't even going to understand that's Cyborg's origin little story in BVS. Now that's on Zack. That's on Zack, right? I love BVS, right? And I know what's going on there. You know what's going on there. But the normies and the mainstream audience don't have a freaking clue. So this thing was a mess from the very beginning. Still love Man of Steel, still love BVS, but you know, if you want to build up, if you want to do a Justice League film after BVS, right, but you can't be asked to do a set of standalone movies, then Aquaman, Cyborg and The Flash must feature as much as Wonder Woman does in BVS. And when you don't do that, you've got yourself a bit of a problem. Now, that's a conversation really for another video, but I'm going to get into it here. As we're talking about Justice League and the rights and wrongs of Justice League, I might change the title by the time you see the video presented to you, and I think I'm going to have to. I think if you do have The Flash, Aquaman and Cyborg in BVS as much as Wonder Woman, people are going to accuse it of being overly condensed, like they already did. And I don't think BVS, in its 3-hour Ultimate Edition form, is over-compressed. But when you look at the theatrical cut, that accusation can very well be made at it. Now, you could have done it, though. You could have done it very, very cleverly, right? We could have seen Arthur Curry. We could have seen Aquaman, right, aka Arthur Curry. We could see Cyborg, but before he becomes Cyborg, right? So and then maybe near the end of the film something happens, and we at least see the car accident, right? That would have been interesting as well. There's ways that you could have integrated these characters in BVS, but then you have to connect the dots. This is the problem. This is the whole problem with the very off of not having structured standalone films for Cyborg, Aquaman, and The Flash before the Justice League movie. Because the Justice League movie, and if I'm going to be very honest about that, and a lot of people are going to hate me for this, should never have been, the fifth movie in this franchise. Now, if I look back, I think Avengers pretty much was, the fifth or sixth, the first Avengers in the MCU. What we got? Iron Man, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, Captain America, 4. I think there's 5 films. So they've done it perfectly, right? But with the DCEU, it's very different because why do you do a Suicide? I've spoken about this before, but why do you do a Suicide Squad film? You need to take Suicide Squad out of there, and you got to focus on the Suicide Squad after the main Justice League movie. Why? Because that's another universe. I know it's all part of Batman's universe. You can integrate that in an actual Batman film, right? You can set that up. You can create that universe because basically Suicide Squad is another different type of the Justice League, right? And you can build that film up and those sequels up with even some individual movies of the actual freaking characters who are in the Suicide Squad, including Waller, one of the best, strongest characters in the DC universe, right? So the whole thing was so rushed just to get the money, and no one thought anything through properly, right? So Zack Snyder was in this position where they said, right, we want a Justice League movie as soon as possible. So Zack did it the best he could. And as I say, I don't know what quality that film is because I haven't seen it yet. But I can bet you $1 billion. Well, I can't because I haven't got $1 billion. But I can bet you a lot of money that it's a better standard of film than the Justice League, the theatrical release of Justice League. But the whole setup was wrong from the very, very beginning. Justice League shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been in that position. But then you pull out Suicide Squad. So you do a Man of Steel movie, Superman. We want Superman to be number one. And then you can kind of do BVS if you want. I love BVS. I wouldn't want to be without BVS. But you know what? Let's be honest. BVS didn't have to be a situation that never happened. BVS probably shouldn't have been the second film. Let's be honest here. Because the second film should have been Ben Affleck's The Batman. And basically, maybe Superman's involved in that film. I don't know, right? That's not important. Man of Steel, Superman's had his film. Next up, it's Batman, The Batman. Ben Affleck can write it, direct it, and star in it, right? And they can do whatever they want with that. If they don't want it to be Deathstroke, but that was the original idea. So I'm assuming that would have been always the idea. Co-written by Jeff Johns, so it would have been a great movie. So then you've got that, right? And then the third movie is a Wonder Woman movie, right? No Suicide Squad. The third movie is a Wonder Woman movie, right? Perfect, right? And then you have a Cyborg movie. Then you have a Flash movie. Then you can even have a Green Lantern movie. And maybe in the 7th or 8th movie, you can finally do a Justice League movie. And if you're going to have 2 or 3 movies a year, if you're carefully structured, if you've got Walter Hamada already in place, that can be done. 2 or 3 or 4 movies a year, it's not going to take long to get the Justice League movie. In fact, if you do things properly structured, you could probably get the Justice League movie in the same year that we actually got it, right? So the DCEU launched in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 4 years. So in 4 years, you could potentially have Man of Steel, The Batman, and a Woman movie in 1 year. If you're organised and structured, right, you could have had those 3 movies, right, in 1 year. Well, imagine what kind of message that would have put out. That would have been amazing. But there was no structure. There was no organisation. Instead, they wanted Christopher Nolan to set this whole thing up, but he wasn't interested. So he brought in Zack Snyder. But they wanted the Justice League movie in 2017, and these are the amount of films that they wanted. Zack didn't get to make those decisions. Zack was the creative controller. He was setting up this arc, and it always, still now, seems like a great arc, and it's a shame we'll never see it, or hopefully we will. Hopefully we will see the Snyder Cut. We're all still fighting for that. Of course we are. But the structure of the franchise was wrong from the very beginning. And after the first couple of films, I couldn't see that. I couldn't accept that. When bloggers and YouTubers were telling me that, were doing videos, I was like, you know, getting angry like we all do. But now, in the cold light of day, I can see it. Suicide Squad had no business being the 3rd film in a DCEU slate. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Suicide Squad had nothing to do with Zack Snyder's initial plans. It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. You can introduce a brand new Joker in the second movie, in Ben Affleck's The Batman, if you want. He can cameo. He don't have to be the main villain. What are you doing with a Suicide Squad movie? In fact, you should probably have a Harley and Joker movie before you have a Suicide Squad movie. But all that elements, the Suicide Squad universe, shouldn't have imposed in what they were trying to do with the initial Grey Day heroes. They all deserved individual movies, and by movie 5 or 6 or even 7, you've got your Justice League. You could still have Justice League released in 2017, and you've got your individual movies. All of a sudden, there's a universe being built. This is why Feige did it. Now, I'm not suggesting our DCEU should be the same tone and the same temper as the MCU, but certainly what Feige did by building up to the Avengers movie wasn't necessarily genius. It was common sense. And there was too many fingers in the pies. There wasn't a leader who could construct this. Zack was a creative controller. Kevin Sugihara, the president of the whole of Warner Brothers, the CEO, was interfering. It wasn't his place to interfere in the creative situation. Too many people were making too many different decisions, and it simply didn't work. So you get to BVS. They put out a crappy theatrical version. Then Zack finally gets allowed to put his version out. Then you've got Suicide Squad. Again, a crappy studio version was edited. But Suicide Squad should never, and I say it again, should never have been the 3rd movie in this franchise. It's as simple as that, my friends, where you can accept that. And it's just my opinion. Comments down below, please. I never meant to go so deep into this but the more you talk about it, the more frustrating it is. Because we could have been the best franchise out there right now, making $1 billion a movie. But it didn't end that way. Because as I say, the structure was wrong. The potential of setting these characters up. Where was the thinking in squeezing them in? BVS. Then all of a sudden we see them in Justice League. Right? You waste a whole slot in the slate with the Suicide Squad. When you could have even done a film, a pre-Justice League film of The Flash, Cyborg and Aquaman, even in one movie. You could have done something interesting, but there was no need to do that. They all could have had their standalone movies before the Justice League movie. And for Christ's sake, Justice League deserves to be the greatest film of all time. And what we were given, and I don't know about the Snyder Cut, was nowhere near the greatest film of all time. The Avengers movie isn't the greatest film of all time, but what it does do, it builds the characters up, you see them in Avengers, and you can't wait to see more. It sets up this interconnected universe. And since that movie, whether they make good or bad movies, the MCU can't stop printing the green. Do you understand? It's about clear, logical thinking. And all because Warner Brothers brought in Christopher Nolan, who didn't want to mould the clay, and I've spoken about this so many times on this channel, He brought in Zack Snyder. So you've got Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, you've got Goya. Then later on, well, Jeff Johns was always there. But in the first two movies of the franchise, they wouldn't even let him have a word in, right? It's only later on that he came in with John Berg and they started running things. But by then, the whole thing had got away. And it was like a train without any brakes. So no one could have saved it. So now we're the franchise is like a two-part affair, isn't it? You've got the Snyderverse and now you've got kind of the Walter Hamadaverse. Let's see how that works out. Ultimately, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, what the plans are. I'm excited for it, but this could have been so much more than what it is now. And that's a shame. And that comes from poor thinking. And basically, you don't just stick a Justice League movie in and expect to introduce characters and try and do a Superman rebirth story to boot. The Snyder Cut, that's what the Snyder Cut did. Now, there's 3.5, 4 hours of movie footage, but that was never going to be the original cut, not even of Zack's movie. So you're probably looking at what? 3 hours, probably? 2 hours 50? A 2 hours 50 Justice League movie. I'm quite sure it's an awesome movie. And if he succeeded to do a Superman rebirth story and introduce the Justice League and make us fall in love with all those characters together, I will put my hands together and respect him. But I have my doubts. Because at the end of the day, that's not how you introduce the Justice League. That's not how it works. And this is the core mistake. And that mistake is not Zack Snyder's fault. He was told these were the amount of films he could have a year. This is when they wanted a Justice League movie. The studio got it wrong because they were greedy. But if they thought intelligently, like I said earlier on in the video, they still could have had Justice League in 2017. And all they needed was 2 to 3 movies a year, and they would have got there. But you have to do things properly. There's no rushing to the gold medal. And when you do try and rush to the gold medal, when you put it on and you look at it, you realise it's not even a bronze medal. And this is the story of Justice League, and this is where it all went wrong. And we will see what the future holds for the DCEU. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back on Wednesday with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.